On today's episode of WatchJRGo, I am out in the truck and I am headed to pick up an American legend that I just bought sight unseen in Ellsworth, Kansas. What is going on, guys? I am WatchJRGo, and like I said, we are headed to Ellsworth, Kansas, and I know the people in Ellsworth are gonna hate me for this, but Ellsworth, Kansas. Yep, that Ellsworth. And today we're about 25 minutes from pulling up to this car. So it's a typical Kansas drive down a 2-lane highway behind a grain truck for hours and hours and hours. It looks like I said, 25 minutes left, and we should be there to get our first glance at this American icon. So grab your pit vipers, cut the sleeves off your shirts. You're about to see some action. All right, guys, here it is. A $1,000 supposedly running Z28 Camaro. Now, I've heard this is a real factory IROC-Z, and it's tuned port and should run, but might have all neutrals. That is all of the story that I've gotten on this car, and today we are gonna get it out of here where basically it was at a shop and then got towed over here and left with a bunch of other F-bodies. So let's first of all get this thing loaded up and then figure out what we've got going on here. It definitely looks like this thing has been sitting for quite a while, and I'm gonna have to load it backwards, which is terrible, but I think we'll get it done. And there we go, one 3rd gen IROC-Z loaded up on the trailer behind us. And that thing, I mean, it's not exactly heavy, but it sure isn't light. That was an absolute insane amount of work to get this thing on this trailer. But hey, we got her loaded up and we're ready to head back to the shop. Well, she's all loaded up and I saw another American legend over here, so I had to come get a shot of them together. Super freaking cool seeing this tank here at the American Legion and the classical Z28 IROC sitting in front of it. Now this is way, way worse than I thought. She has seen some damage. It needs a front bumper and a side skirt and paint, but nonetheless, IROC-Z. Like I said, get your mullet and your pit vipers and your cutoff shorts ready to go. We'll check it out for real once we get back to the house and we get it off the trailer here, but this is pretty cool. Get to put in some big boy fuel today. Not a lot of truck stops with this truck, honestly. It's like a gallon every, I don't know, 4 seconds. And just like that, we are back in the shop with my new to me, now I know what year it is, 1987 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 IROC. And I know you might be thinking that I did not buy a real IROC for $1,000 that might run, but I literally did, and I just verified all the RPOs inside the center console, and it does have B4Z and Z28. In fact, this car, even though it looks terrible, is hard loaded. In fact, this is the most loaded 3rd gen Camaro I have ever seen. I know it's seen better days, and I've got some stories for y'all on how all of this damage happened to the front end. But with that said, let's take a look inside for the first time. So it is a T-top car, obviously, so you know they leak. They always do on 3rd gens. And yes, the side skirts are broken, but they do sell those, and you can buy new side skirts and just bolt them on. So inside, it looks terrible. Years of dust plus water does this. I mean, it wasn't taking on that much water, but it was a lot. The dash is ruined, the steering wheel's ruined, but this has power mirrors. The only time I've ever seen it in a third gen Camaro. Power locks, obviously, even that was optional this long ago. The fog lights, which are an option as well. It has cruise control. In the RPO list there, we have a JVC head unit and a Pioneer CD changer, which is very cool. The Z28 icon on the dash, and I did look, they sell the entire dash, so you can fix all of this pretty easily if the seats clean up. So while the interior is messy, like I said, this is a true IROC car, which means it has bigger sway bars, upgraded suspension, specially valved shocks. It has the IROC wheels with the IROC center caps. It has a special steering and frame brace so it doesn't wander. You know, these felt a little sloppy in the front end. It tightens up the connection between the rack and the actual body, so you have more direct control over the car. It literally has all of the performance options except for 1LE. This IROC is literally the peak of performance in 87, except for maybe the 1LE and the Corvette. So very, very cool history with this car. I'd love to open the hatch, but of course it is power pull down, so I can't do that. Look at that. The retractable cover's in there. I saw that on their RPO list too, and I figured it would be long gone, but the cargo net cover is still in this. It's got failing tint on the back window, as F-bodies normally do. The back bumper is actually in good shape. I was already pricing out new rear bumpers, but it's perfect. I was not expecting that. No chunks out of that. So really, while this thing looks rough, it's not as bad as I thought. Little door ding there. But the door, other than that, is straight. There's one more, maybe PDR on all of those. And for the most part, we just need a new set of the factory hood louvers and also a front bumper. Now, this thing has stacked some bodies over the years. I found out from the old owner that one side hit a dog and one side hit a deer. I mean, it happens when you're out in middle of nowhere, Kansas. These things run across the street, and what are you gonna do? The hood looks like it actually survived all of this. The bumper is pulled down in the front, but the hood lines actually all look correct. The fenders have survived. So the reality is a front bumper and paint kind of puts this thing all the way back together. Now, I also heard the last time this car ran was 10 years ago, so I don't want to just throw a battery on it and crank it over. So first we're gonna get the hood open here, and we're gonna check the oil, fluids, all that fun stuff. And then if there is a Schrader, we're gonna pump all the gas out of this thing just to make sure we don't run all of the trash through the TPI fuel system. They're already a little finicky, so I don't want to send a bunch of old trash fuel through there. 10 years is really pushing the limit for what I want to start. Even though it'll probably run on it, it's pushing the limit. Will the hood open? Hey, look at that, the cable pulled immediately. I was expecting a fight from the hood. All right, it did need some persuasion there. And, oh, that's not good, that's sticking on the wipers. So I don't know if it was sticking on the wipers, but I had to walk around the hood and lift on both sides. And now if I pull forward, oh, I can open the hood, and the hood struts do work, but at the same time, they're not lifting enough to properly make this hood open. And second of all, what on earth is this? Wow, I've never seen anything look this bad underneath. I really planned on just jumping right in here and getting this thing going, but the engine bay is a mess. Now, I do want to mention this isn't the dream spec. There were a lot of engines that went into the third gen over the years. You could have the Iron Duke. There were a bunch of options, but there was also the 305, which made 215 horsepower, and then the 350, which made about 235, just a handful more power. And if I remember right, the only difference is the heads between the two. This is a 305. It's not the 350. But at the same time, it's not a 1LE, so it's not the rarest thing on the planet. With that said, let's push this car back outside. We're gonna pressure wash the engine because this engine has no business being worked on this dirty. It is absolutely horrific. Hey, smog pump belt's already been deleted. Very cool, I love that. It does have the AC, and I doubt it works, but let's get it outside, clean it up, and go from there. She is filthy. Well, that probably took a good hour, but the entire car has been foam cannoned, wiped down, and most importantly, the engine bay is usable, livable. I am excited about this. The one thing I haven't done yet is dried it, so I'm gonna go ahead and take the blower right now and blow everything off, because you know, water always loves to sit down in the intake V, but this looks like something we can work on. So give me a couple seconds to blow this off, and then we'll get in here and apply a little power to this car for the first time after we check the fluids. Oops, future me here. I forgot to mention in this video, this is the next car in the trade up series. I know it seems like a trade sideways or possibly even a trade down, but this car in cool factor has so much more than anything else that's been in the trade up series so far. And also, it was a lot less than what we just sold the Lincoln for. So we've got a little bit of budget left over so we can make this thing live again. And if we keep going at the rate we're going, I think we'll have it running very soon. Well, here's the one you guys have been waiting for. Checking the oil. And honestly, it looks good. It's a little low, but it looks great. Let's throw this back in here and give it the old smell test. I mean, it hasn't run in 10 years, so I'm gonna doubt it smells like gasoline, but wow, hard to get that dipstick in and out. Smells like oil. All right, so that's our first victory right there. Now, trans fluid. It's got trans fluid, and it's red. It's not burnt like 4L60s usually. Well, this is 700 R4. This thing is old school. No electronics on the transmission, so that's a cable, kick down TV cable, you know. We've got fluids. I think we go ahead and pull the Schrader off the fuel rail here, hook a hose up to it, and run it into a gas can and see what happens. Now, there's a problem. The cap for the fuel rail doesn't want to come off. All right, there's our cap. Ooh, it kind of seems like the fuel Schrader might be leaking, and it freaking stinks. It smells very bad, but there's too much liquid inside this cap, which there should be none, right? So let me grab my Schrader tool and let's pull that out of the rail here. We're kind of running on hopes and dreams here, but here is the fuel rail. Oh, it's gonna work, okay. I was gonna say, they made it kind of impossible to get the angle you need to get down onto this Schrader, but this actually does fit. Just a slight angle for your tool there. All right, don't drop that guy. I will say it looks filthy. Maybe it was leaking past it. All right, we're gonna set all this aside. Don't lose those. So we've got our hose coming off the rail into the VP can. If the electric pump works, it's gonna start filling because the ignition is on. That did not happen. Huh, I just gave it power. It's alive! Is this thing filling up? No. All right, let's go inside and solve some problems here. So, off. Come on, park. So when I turn the key on, we get nothing but fan. And the fan and the fuel pump are right here. I think this one's the fuel pump, right beside the brake booster. This one says right on it, MAF power, so I'm gonna assume that's power for the MAF. And then this one, I think, is fan. So what we're gonna do is pull both of these off, get the relays off of there. I wanna unhook the fan, because that does not need to be running at all. And you know what, I wonder if it's because the AC switch is on. Before we commit, yeah, AC's turned off, so it's not that actually. And for some reason, nothing else inside here. Oh, the head unit does get power. Okay, well, it's not as dire as I thought. Hatch open? Nope. So far, the outlook on the Camaro is very bad. In fact, it's sell, because there's no fuel pump. I'm pretty sure the fuel pump relay is this one, because this one turns on and off when the key cycles. This one does nothing, and somebody has wired around and added a relay somewhere else to the fan, so I was able to unhook the multi-pin connector to the fan. Then I was able to get a little gas out of here by just blowing with the air gun, and look what came out of there. That is green goo. This tank was dry a second ago. So green fuel is not what we were going for. That's a brand new color. And now let's try turning the engine over. Obviously at this point I am worried. So there's our crank bolt. Oh no. Oh, look at that. It moves. Oh, wow, it's tight. That's unbelievable. Oh, okay. Well, since that's the case, let's put a little oil down in the cylinders and see if the starter's got something for us. I kind of doubt it does. And it's also a big pain to get these spark plugs out, but we're gonna have to make it happen. Oh! You guys know the deal. You'll get buried in the troubleshooting, working away, and of course I'm using a battery on jumper cables hooked up to a dead battery and hoping that powers the car. It's just so much better to start with a clean slate. So I ripped out that CarQuest Premium that was in here and grabbed our Superstart Extreme. Let me get this battery in here real quick, and then hopefully we're working from a nice fresh place instead of, you know, just fighting everything from the beginning. Yeah, buddy. Fresh battery installed. Let's see what we're working with now. Fuel pump, please. Nope. Oh, that didn't happen before. But we did get crank. No fuel pump relay right now. I put the new battery in there. The driver window is working. The hatch opened. And are you guys ready? Look at that. The struts are actually good on the hatch. Here comes the magic. It needed some help. You guys aren't gonna believe this, but this car that has been sitting for 10 years with a distributor nonetheless and a coil, all of these failure points has spark. I promise, take a look. The spark tester is just flashing away. So with that said, I'm gonna pull the spark tester back out of here. Let's backfeed this fuel rail and make this thing run. You guys know we can do it. As long as the injectors are running, and I'm pretty sure they are, we've got this. Time to do some sketchy stuff. Doo-dah, doo-dah. Look at that, we got our fuel pump. I bought this on Amazon like 100 years ago, and it's just been sitting here waiting for me to do something stupid with it. So we have hose clamped our fuel line here onto the rail, and you can see it is actually leaking a bit, so that's actually good news. This isn't enough pressure. These TPI setups do want like 30 PSI at minimum, but we have fuel going into it. So all I need now is somebody to turn the key, and I think it's gonna start. I'm pretty sure it's gonna run. Well guys, it does not get wilder than this. Yes, I know, fuel tank eventually. We've got our tough chug here, fuel pump, pulling fuel out. Fuel pump is primed. And then I've got my remote starter solenoid switch that normally I'd use to test out a starter hooked up between the power in on the fuel pump and the battery. And then I've got that ran all the way over here so that I can do the ignition and the fuel pump at the same time. And then of course you can see our crazy fuel line routing here. It might work. It really might work, and we're about to find out. So let's do it. I do wonder if it needs these two relays here. I don't know if you guys heard, but it got faster as it turned over. A lot faster. No dice so far. I think we do need way more fuel pressure. These injectors, like I said, do not like to run without 30 PSI behind them. And this pump says 10 to 14. So if I had a booster pump, I'd throw that on there too, but I don't. I need to just go find a 30 PSI inline electric pump. That would work. Guys, I straight up forgot to cheat. I just threw some starting fluid in it. It's alive! Well, we might not have fuel yet, but we do have everything else we need to make it run. And actually, I think the injectors might be firing, but also they've just sat for so long. probably need to pull the rail and pull all the injectors and clean them all, which isn't the worst idea, but also it's 10 times what it would take to just get the right amount of fuel into it, and they'll just snap right over. I know this doesn't change anything, but I went ahead and pulled the hose from the tank, which is this guy right here. It's this one, the bigger line, and then of course the bigger line as well that runs under the AC compressor all the way up through here and into the actual rails right there under the TPI intake. So now we're supplying it directly, and I put the Schrader back in, put the cap back in, kind of rebuilt everything because we're getting closer and closer. And of course, when I took the air cleaner V off, we found a bunch more mud. But with that said, it's time to rip this out of here. It's not gonna get the job done. So let's go to O'Reilly's and get ourselves the pump. So I looked at the spec on the pump for this car. It's actually 97 PSI max. The Delphi pump, which is probably the same as the OEM AC Delco pump, is actually 70, but the Master Pro from O'Reilly's is rated at 90 PSI. So those pumps will absolutely crank. So we can probably just go ahead and put the sock on it and drop it in my gas tank right there and have this thing running, no problem. But the problem with this, right, you're all wondering why I'm avoiding doing the work. You have to drop the axle, everything under here. You have to drop the entire back end out of the car and the tank before you can get to the fuel pump and the fuel sender assembly. So it's an absolute nightmare. And basically every one of these does have a hole cut in the shelf back here, right? So hopefully if things go my way, there's already a big square hole cut right here under the carpet. So with that said, I need to get the seat flipped forward and get the carpet peeled back. And if we're lucky, there's a giant square cut out here where somebody's just kind of folded it up and then put it back down. So, and you only cut, you know, 3 sides and then fold it. That way you can punch it back down and maybe put like one self-tapper in it to hold it together. Well, I called O'Reilly's to order the fuel pump for this, and it's not at my store and it won't be here until tomorrow morning. So, unfortunately, that is where our saga with the 87 IROC-Z ends for now. Maybe. I've got one more thing up my sleeve. Looks like 90 PSI on demand to me. Well, my plan failed. Apparently you can't just use a bunch of air pressure and all the fuel you have in the system. I know the thing is completely full of fuel, but we'll get this pump and tomorrow we'll get moving on it. I tried my air trick with the return open, and then I tried it again with it closed, of course, to pressurize it for real. Huge crack in the O-ring on the gas cap. That's a really fast way to figure things out, isn't it? So, car needs a new gas cap too. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. In the next video, we should have this American legend up and running again. And don't forget to head on over to shop.WatchJRGo.com for cool shirts just like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do. And I will talk to you next time. I couldn't just quit, so I went ahead and did a little bit of vacuuming back there and up front, and that's looking a lot better already. The seats, we're gonna try to extract them, but they're looking very, very bad. But hey, the carpet's cleaning up, and the carpet in the back is really cleaning up. Look at that 50-50. So another 20 minutes of vacuuming, and the interior is gonna look like something.